All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started with this month's Talking Tim webinar. I'm Adam Hops with the National Operations Center of Excellence. Thank you so much for joining us today. As I keep mentioning, your phone will be muted throughout our presentations, but we will have a question and discussion period at the end. So please do use that question discussion pod on the right-hand side of your screen to ask any questions that you might have of our fantastic speakers today, and we'll try and cover them at the end. As always, it's an honor to be able to host these webinars every month. Thank you to Paul, Joden, and his entire team over at FHWA, being able to have real-life practitioners and heroes in traffic incident management present every month on the NOCO platform is certainly a treat for us. One shameless plug for this month. At NOCO, we have recently wrapped up a series of 55 case studies that we've been working on over the last 6 months based on the awards program. Those case studies are linked there at the bottom of the useful links. There are quite a few traffic incident management topics in there. The case study package in general covers all of transportation systems management and operations, but of course Tim, being an essential part of that, was a very strong component, including a case study on Penn Start, thanks to Todd Leiss and his team, who will be presenting later. So check those out for some of those Tim-related case studies in there to continue learning about things going on around the country. With that, I will turn it over to Paul Joden, and we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Adam. A big thank you to the National Operations Center of Excellence and Adam, who is so patient with us. Both the presenters and me in particular, giving them something about 2 minutes. And thanks everybody for joining. These are really a fun exercise for me in particular, and my partner Jim Ostrich, and helpful. So the good news today is that I am going to just give you a brief update and reminder about the TIM self-assessment. So you won't have to listen to me too. But today we have some cool presenters, very knowledgeable, and basically, excuse me. The first presentation will be on by David MacDonald from Texas. He is the first traffic incident management coordinator that Texas has ever had, and I had been talking to his boss for about 4 years prior to that. He had tried a long time to get that position in place, and it was a great selection. David has done big things. I really moved the ball forward in Texas in just a short period of time. And David is retired from the Austin Police Department, who was a lead agency in Texas for a long time with him. And prior to working for the police department, he served in the Marine Corps for 4 years. So the next presentation will be on the Pennsylvania Traffic Incident Management Program by Todd Leiss, who is the TIM program coordinator in the Traffic and Engineering and Operations Department for the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. Prior to becoming the TIM coordinator for the commission, he worked at the Operations Center as a duty officer for more than 15 years, and then the Turnpike Coordination Operations Center. He also has prior experience as emergency dispatcher, volunteer firefighter, an emergency medical technician, and hazmat material team member. Todd has also done a great job leading Pennsylvania in the statewide TIM committee, which he is chair. I think she's still. And that's been a great addition as well. Jim, I don't know Jim very well, but Jim Roth is a civil engineer with the Ohio Department of Transportation, and he's a good program, but he's worked there with ODOT for 32 years and is currently in the Office of Traffic Management. Involved with traffic incident management activities, a Freeway Service Patrol program, the TMC, and Towing and Recovery Incentive Program, which he'll talk about today. So we'll have those 3 presentations. We're just going to skip to each one. As Adam had said, any questions, put them in the chat bar. We'll keep an eye on that as we go through the presentations, and then we'll definitely come back and and provide we should have some time at the end for questions and answer. So for this year, just a reminder, the self-assessment is due in a little over 30 days for those of you that participate. Every year, I'll be calling if you don't get it in. For those of you that have never participated, consider doing the self-assessment. It's a great way to advance your program. For this year, we made it. We streamlined it to make it easier. We're in respect for everyone's time. We kept all the questions, but we eliminated all but 4 of the non-scored supplemental questions. So hopefully you can complete the self-assessment in a little bit faster manner. And we made just one we're not looking for the comments as much as we used to, but please provide if you're interested. Who should submit the self-assessment? The top 75 metro areas are what's historically we've requested, and we're continuing to do so at the very least. But also states without a top 75 metro area is also requested. And this is a great exercise. The self-assessment is a great exercise for all TIM committees to Speaking of TIM committees, this is my TIM committees map, which I'm very proud of. I really like this map because this is, things that you're doing within your committee and within your area is what's happening throughout the country. So folks just like you are meeting at least quarterly. This represents at least quarterly, and it's showing that we're continuing to move things forward and continuing to make progress with traffic incident management and the program. So if you see this map and your committee is not on this map, shoot me an email and we'll would love to add you to the map. So this is an ongoing project, and I enjoy showing this to a lot of different people nationally. Understand about the last year we had 98 locations submitted, so they were well beyond the top 75. So if you're new to the self-assessment and you'd like to take it, we can provide you with that information. But so you take the self-assessment, your committee takes a self-assessment, and then you compare it to the national average, which last year was 70.4%. Or if you're in a non-metro area, for example, a non-top 75 metro area, you can compare your score against others. So it kind of gives you a feel for where you are nationally with your program. So why do we push the self-assessment? Well, it gives us a measure both locally, in your region, and it gives us an idea nationally what where the programs stand, but it's also an opportunity for continued improvement. So you find out the different, the different opportunities to move forward. You answer the self-assessment. You want to go from one level to the other. It provides you some recommendations to move forward. So I urge everyone that's involved in those self-assessments and on those committees to pick one thing, maybe 2. That you can improve on for the next year. So the whole idea is to continued improvement, and it gives you a very solid framework for how an ideal program should look. So with that, those are the contact information for anyone that has a question or needs some assistance with the self-assessment. So with that, I'll pass it over to Dave MacDonald from Penn Start, and
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the introduction. Thank you, Adam and NOCE for hosting us every month. I've been on every phone call, and I'll tell you what, it's been very beneficial for someone that's got a new program going. So as Paul mentioned, I'm the first TIM coordinator for actually Penn Start, but the great thing is there's actually many programs already in place, or many TIM teams in place when I started. But prior to my hire, the duties are actually performed by a consultant, and they were brought on board in 2016. And FHWA, Paul Joden, Jim Ostrich, and our Texas contacts from the FHWA here in Texas, Millie Hayes and Steve Radke, have all been a great help. And during the other phone calls, I know that the Oregon TIM conference last year has been mentioned quite a bit, and I'm going to get another plug, so if you get an opportunity to go, I definitely encourage that. That's probably the most beneficial thing that I got to attend last year, and really saw some good ideas and what other folks are doing and what Oregon themselves are doing. Some key takeaways from the Oregon Peer Exchange and the conference were just the way they utilize social media, and one of the things that really impressed me was their Near Miss Mondays, a campaign that they do their TIM newsletter. And so, you know, I actually want to get my own newsletter started here in Texas, and that's something that some folks in the Fort Worth district are actually helping me with, and we'll get that going here pretty quickly. So this is the way Texas is broken up. We have several TIM teams already in existence. Every metro area had one before I started. Can't see the black dots. They range from El Paso, which is nearly to New Mexico, all the way over to Houston. And I think we have a poll question coming up at this point. So I'll just kind of pause and let everybody do that real quick.
Yeah, it looks like folks are filling it in. We'll broadcast the results here in a second as votes come in.
So all these TIM teams in Texas, they're all meeting and they're all doing things, and they've been meeting regularly. And actually in Houston, they actually have their own TIM coordinator for that area, and it's funded by their NPO COG in that area. But I really want to highlight the Fort Worth district. They actually got their TIM teams back on board at the end of 2018, but they didn't just stop with getting a regional team. So in addition to the metro team, they're using a best practice and have put together several smaller corridor teams that include rural areas. Why is that important? Well, all of our test stop districts have multiple counties and cities in them, and not all of them are close to the metro areas, and they don't all face the same issues. So some of the key benefits is the participation by many disciplines, open and good communication addressing specific issues. One of the things that they were able to accomplish was actually going out and addressing some issues at a problem intersection where they were having numerous crashes. So currently there's 4 TIM teams in the Fort Worth area, and they're going to be adding number 5 and 6 later on this year. And also, back in June, they held their first regional TIM meeting/conference and had over 80 folks in attendance and brought in some really good guest speakers as well. So where did we start here in Texas when I took over? Well, I'll tell you what, I started by putting a lot of miles on a state vehicle and traveling all over the state, attending these meetings. But during the process, we realized that there was a need for a format for all of our TIM leaders to actually communicate and share information. Well, you know, we're in the 2000s, and so there's technology, and so we actually used some of that technology and started hosting our first statewide TIM WebEx in June of last year. We held that WebEx at the Austin district, and anytime we do one of these meetings, which are bi-monthly, we go to a different location that has a TIM team, and we'll do it from that site, and also allows for us to have additional conversations and see how we can assist them in their TIM efforts. So in the beginning, we only had our TIM leaders and co-leaders that attended the WebExes, but as word got out, others requested to be on the WebEx. Our audience actually grew to include our safety service patrols and hero programs, our TNC staff, towers from the private sector, public work folks, medical examiners, law enforcement, fire, hazmat cleanup companies, and the list just kind of continues to grow. And also, as we evolved, we wanted to bring in guest speakers from inside Texas and outside Texas to share some out-of-the-box thinking and ingenuity. So Paul just mentioned the TIM self-assessment. So, you know, many folks do these, and, you know, if you have your TIM meetings, you always talk about your major incidents. So as I attended the TIM meetings, and we really were pushing for folks to start having after-action reviews and seeing what they're doing and see how we can improve what we're actually doing in Texas and share that information across the state. We wanted to push after-action reviews, but as I got to looking, we didn't actually have a form to utilize. So working with my consultant, we actually created an after-action review form, and along with that, we also came up with what's called a major incident summary report, and that's actually filled out and sent up to our administration level. So some key takeaways that we've had with a few after-action reviews that we've done over time. Make sure you utilize ICS, Unified Command. We actually had significant time lost at an incident by the fire department because of lack of communication. Also, make sure you notify the proper agency, the owner of the roadway, before your incident occurs. They may have additional information for you, and you can utilize their resources. And one of the towing companies that attended actually brought up, make sure you call for them and other resources early on, because it takes them a while to get their resources there. And then you can see some other things. That last one, advanced Q warning, is really crucial, because we've had a lot of secondary crashes because we didn't have good advanced Q warning for some incidents. So I want to share a partnership with you, something that we were able to get accomplished last year. I'm sure everybody keeps up with their metrics on abandoned vehicles and how long they're left on your roadways, and depending on your state laws, it depends on how long they can be left out there. Well, in Austin, they actually deemed any vehicle that's left on the shoulder to be a hazard, but the police department is the only one who can actually impound a vehicle. So Hero actually reached out to the Austin Police Department to see how they could work together and get these vehicles removed off the roadway quicker to get better access to incident scenes, so the police vehicles and first responders can use the shoulders. So what they did is they came together, and since Hero checks on every vehicle that's left on the shoulder, and other motorists, when they pass one of these vehicles and they confirm that it's actually indeed abandoned, they'll check on it, they'll notify the Traffic Management Center here in Austin, and it's co-located with the APD Communications, so they'll let them know, and then Communications will actually contact an on-duty APD supervisor who gives authorization for impound of that vehicle. So we're actually noticing the vehicles not being left on the roadway for near as long, and we actually use data and how long vehicles were sitting out there to get this program implemented. So we actually started that program in October 2018 as a pilot, and then full implementation in November of 18. So it's not quite as aggressive as this program. We had a guest speaker, Jeanette Rash from the Houston Tow Go program. This is a very, very aggressive program, and I wish we had this statewide, but unfortunately the way legislation is written, we can't do that. So let me explain to you what the Tow and Go program is and how it works. So Tow and Go is actually funded by federal dollars. It's actually the same funds that pay for our Hero program here in Austin. But the way it works is you have record companies that actually bid on a section of the highway there in Houston and Harris County, and they actually patrol this section of highway 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, looking for stalled or abandoned vehicles. If they come across a vehicle, whether it's abandoned or just stalled and the owner's with it, they use an app. They actually take a picture of the vehicle, their location on the highway. They send that back to Houston Transtar. There's a deputy in Houston Transtar who reviews it, then authorizes the tow, and the vehicle is removed. And their numbers, they're clearing their stalled vehicles in about 22 minutes off the highways. So they will remove the vehicle and the owner to the first exit. They put them in a parking lot. It needs to be, they have to make sure that there's light. If it's at night, the business is open and there's access to a phone. If the vehicle is actually left abandoned, the vehicle will be towed to the storage facility for that wrecker, and the person who comes and claims the vehicle actually has to pay for the incurred charges. So this is, you know, as I was talking about, when we started our 10 phone calls, we really wanted to remove our silos and get some out-of-the-box thinking. And so we actually came across Captain Key from the Irving Fire Department, and they really were thinking outside the box when they came up with this program. So if you're looking for a very cost-effective way to invest in your 10 program, you might want to look at this. So what the Irving Fire Department did, they started looking at the number of fire apparatuses that they were getting struck and how long they were out of service, and also looked at when they sold the fire apparatus at auction, the little money that they were getting for it. So they wanted to see how they could repurpose that vehicle. So hopefully you can see the slide well enough. On the back of that truck it says Blocker 12. So they actually strip all the firefighting equipment from the fire truck, put additional lighting and aero boards on there, and they take it out to a scene that's driven by one firefighter, and they'll park it and they use it as a blocker, and if it gets hit, at least you're not taking an actual fire apparatus out of commission for a certain amount of time. And they've actually had really good success with this program. So just like FHWA does when they put these calls together, we always ask, are there any topics that you want to know about or interested in for the future phone calls? So back in February, we had somebody ask if there were any, if anyone was using technology and how they're clearing their traffic fatalities and able to clear and get the roadways open quicker. But we also, the police department actually just started implementing their UAS program. And so we had a detective from APD actually get on the phone call, and they shared with us how the program works and how they're able to get roadways open much quicker. So prior to using UAS, they were actually using total station. That took a few hours, and you only got a couple hundred points for your investigation. And so once they moved to UAS, they're actually collecting millions of points, and rather than shutting down a roadway to collect those points for 2 to 3 hours. So this is from the detective's presentation. I'm not making this up. Once they get there, get the UAS and get the coordinates program, the actual flight time for the UAS is about 6 minutes for the average scene. And so, you've got a great reduction in the time that it's collecting your points there for your investigation. And also the end product that is being produced is much better. So for the UAS program, it's only used for traffic fatality investigations. There's no other use for police work. You can't use it for a hostage situation or a SWAT call out or anything like that. What is involved, there are some extensive requirements from both federal and state. You got to take in your airport tower coordination and many other things. So if you want to get a program started, you got some research to do, but others have already got it started, so I just recommend reaching out to those agencies who have done this already. What is needed and what are the costs? So APD actually bought 2 UAS and cameras for a cost of about $12,000 combined. But in addition to that, you need some type of software. So they use Pix4D. That cost is $8,500, and that was paid for by the district attorney's office. And that's another point of emphasis. Make sure you get the buy-in from your DA's office, because they will be the ones doing the prosecution of your cases. So as I mentioned earlier, our calls grew and actually included the medical examiner. And so the ME in Harris County actually attends the 10 meetings there regularly. So if you look at this graph, back in 2014, you could be waiting anywhere from, basically an hour to upwards up to 2 hours for the ME to show up at your fatality. Well, so what happened? Because if you look at the lower lines, it's much better now, and the time has really decreased significantly. So what happened? Well, in 2015, they did a policy revision and a reprioritization of how they respond to the scenes and which scene they go to first. So in their policy change, the highest priority is given to a scene that was being disruptive to the public, to include roadway closure, high visibility, if it got publicity, or mass fatalities. So some of the positive impacts was reduced congestion to commuters and residents, reduction in secondary crashes, and Texas has many toll roads as other states do, and so there's also a reduced financial loss on the toll roads. So some other topics that have been presented on our phone calls, we had the North Central Texas Council of Governments. They presented on things that they do with their CMAQ funds and call for projects. We actually had Ron Moore, who was one of the original contributors to the Sharp 2 training, and he shared suggested updates due to technological and equipment changes. We had a heavy-duty towing company that shared some of their challenges when they respond to a big incident and recovering costs for cleanup. Hazmat company, the Austin Tech Stop District actually presented on smart work zones and their capabilities and reporting and how they use that information when they're doing a project. And also Paul's partner, Jim Ostrich, was on our phone call back in June and shared the number of responders that we've had struck this far in 2019, and also some events from the Emergency Response Day at ITS America. So I just got a couple more slides and I'll get off. So this is something else that evolved from our TIM WebEx. One of our program managers for a courtesy Patrol program has been on our calls, and he wanted to know if we could do something very similar for courtesy patrols, so we could actually start sharing information and find out what other folks are doing. So we hosted our first bi-monthly call back in March, and we actually hosted a call this morning, and sorry about that, my timer was going off to let me know that I'm running out of time. So this morning we had a phone call with all of our coast patrol programs again in Texas, but just like the regular TIM phone calls, you know, we need to get information from outside of our state to know what other folks are doing. So this morning we had Jason Josie from the Georgia DOT Hero program on our call, as well as a person from Pilot to talk about the equipment and lighting, and some previous topics from other phone calls, including equipment, innovation, best practices, anytime you're transporting a motorist off the highway, debris removal, and some others. So that's what we've been doing. So where do we go from here? And we got to keep looking forward. So some future plans is I've already written up an open roads agreement, and just like I stole things from the Oregon TIM conference last year, you know, many states already have open roads agreements, so basically I just plagiarized what they already had and sent it up to our administration. Well, we'd also like to host our own TIM conference either next year or the following year. We've got a great expansion in our Shark 2 training. DPS, our state police agency, has been instrumental in that as well, teaching several train-the-trainer courses, and we've been able to actually incorporate a lot of the 4-hour classes as well. And I'm going to give a shout out to DPS because they really helped me with this. Starting in January 2020, the Shark 2 training is going to be required for all new police officers going through the academy starting in January. So hopefully that's going to really help us move our TIM efforts forward. Also looking at some changes on our crash report to include secondary crashes, responders struck to include which discipline they work for, roadway clearance time, incident clearance time, creating our own TIM website. We're also going to be getting a hero program in San Antonio and El Paso later this year. Also want to be able to utilize social media better to get information out. And then the last point, everybody goes home. I really want a catchphrase to really, so everybody understands why we do what we do and why we push these meetings and we push safety, because I really think it lines up with the Shark 2 training with responder safety and safe quick clearance. And everybody goes home is simple. That means everybody. So when you're doing something, there's no shortcuts. You make sure that you do it in a way that everybody goes home, to include everybody working that scene, to everybody stuck in that traffic queue, which would include good advanced queue warning. So with that, that is the conclusion of my presentation. I appreciate your time, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Todd from Pennsylvania.
Thanks, David. Good presentation. Very useful information. Got a lot of notes here. This afternoon now, I guess I'd like to share some information on the Pennsylvania Safety Transportation Research Track, so PennStart.org, and what we're trying to do here in Pennsylvania for traffic incident management and responder safety. So where this came about was in 2014, in the state of Pennsylvania, we did a traffic incident management study on how to keep responders safe. We did this report in February 2014. That came up with 28 recommendations for keeping responders safe while working on our roadways. What we do a lot of times with most of the studies we do is we put it on the shelf. We really didn't do anything with that. So in 2016, we wanted to look at that study and try to bring that back into people's minds and focus. And so we held what we called a TIM Summit or TIM Kickoff Summit in November of 2016. What we did with this summit is try to bring responders together from all over Pennsylvania so that we could start working together as a team instead of working together individually. So I think we're very successful. So since that time, after that, doing the summit, we talked about the importance of TIM, the state of TIM in Pennsylvania, because again, a lot of times we did some TIM activities, but we didn't really do them working as a team and working together as a group to try to do this. We had one of the survivors from the Lionville Fire Department story, which is shown in the Shark 2 training. We had Michael Cox there talk about the David Good story. We reviewed the 28 recommendations, and my goal for the summit was not to try to tackle 28 recommendations going forward, but let's tackle the top 5 recommendations that are still relevant. So we had breakout groups as part of this, and we looked and we tackled what the top 5 things were. So as we were doing this, then we had speakers from Ohio, Carl Merkel and his group, New Jersey, Sal Cowan and Mike Moran, Joey Sagel and Scott Yinger from Maryland came up, and then Colonel Tracy Trott from Tennessee. And one of the things that Colonel Trott mentioned in Tennessee was that they have a 10 to 15 acre, I believe, traffic incident management training facility where they can do hands-on training in a controlled environment on a test track. So once we had our summit, we formed what we call PEN Time, which is our Pennsylvania Traffic Incident Management Enhancement Program, and we moved on from there. Since we've had the summit in 2016, we've met quarterly since January 2017, and we meet quarterly. We do both in-person meeting and offer a WebEx for that so people could come. We usually end up anywhere between 60 and 80 people attend via in-person or by WebEx. Sorry, I got ahead of myself there. One of the things that came out of the summit was Federal Highway approached me in December of 2016 and said, how would you like to build a training facility similar to what Tennessee has in Pennsylvania? And definitely a great idea. Any place that we could do to train responders, we want to try to train responders in a safe, controlled environment. So when Federal Highway approached me, we wanted to look at try to build one of these in Pennsylvania. So I approached my leadership about it, and I said, hey, is this possible? Can we do this to focus primarily on traffic incident management and work zone safety? We did a study. We wanted to do this. We understand the numbers that the Federal Highway says that currently hasn't been trained, or how many we have to be trained nationwide, and we looked at that. So we wanted to come up with something not just for Pennsylvania, but Mid-Atlantic region to train responders. These are some of the numbers of what we have trained in Pennsylvania and what we have trained in neighboring states, and how many people we have to be trained. So, we're making progress. We went in 3 years, we went from about 11.9% of our responders trained in Pennsylvania up to about 25%. Is that great? No. Is it better than it was? Yes. We're making progress, and we're currently always working to do traffic incident management training. It's Wednesday. I've done 4 TIM classes this week, so we're always working to do more and more training and try to get more and more training out. David, what I thought was good with your presentation, as you mentioned, Unified Command. We are currently taking our Unified Command class that we teach throughout Pennsylvania, and we are refreshing that, refurbishing that, and trying to make sure that we could push that back out to as many responders as possible to work together at the scene. So we approached, once we built a facility in Pennsylvania. So we did this. We wanted to reach out to stakeholders. So we had a number of stakeholder meetings to talk about what we're trying to do. We looked for federal and state agencies, our MPOs and our RPOs in Pennsylvania, and our county and local governments, also our TIM partners. We have many good corridor coalitions here, the I-95 Corridor Coalition, the I-81 Corridor Coalition, and we worked on some of those partners. And we also work with the Emergency Responder Safety Institute, which does the ResponderSafety.com website. So if you're not familiar with that website, it's very important for any of us in the TIM community to go to ResponderSafety.com, look at the website, and understand what training they offer, free, high-quality online training. I had Adam upload 3 different documents that we helped work with for Emergency Responder Safety Institute. There's a white paper that we did last November on blocking vehicles. We had Chief Conley from Irving, Texas up here. We had Chief Tennant from Grand Rapids, Michigan, so that's a white paper that people could download. We also just did a lighting study with the Emergency Responder Safety Study, so I had him upload that as well, and also a white paper on emergency responder safety. So those 3 documents are available for people to download. We had stakeholder meetings to try to get Penn Start moving forward here in Pennsylvania, and it showed that there was strong interest. We did a online survey through SurveyMonkey. We got 851 survey responses back, trying to gauge responder interest. If we build a facility like this, would you come and do hands-on training at a facility like this? The operations model, we said we don't want to have the TIM users paying for the facility. We want them to be able to come and train for free. So that's why we wanted to make a business plan that we would provide TIM training, but we'd also have connected autonomous vehicle training. We'd have transit. We'd have trucking. So we'd have a multifaceted facility. We looked at some of the other facilities out there. We looked at Tennessee. We looked at TransCore, M-City, SunTrack, and the other facilities, and we wanted to do something similar to what they have. So we have the need and demand for hands-on training. We need to diversify the training that we're doing from not only safety and training, but we also have the research and testing that goes beyond TIM, and we want to have a partnership. So we were looking for an agency to partner with, so we reached out to the Larson Transportation Institute up at Penn State University and said, hey, are you interested in going into a facility like this with us? They currently test vehicles up there 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. They test mass transit buses, so they are a partner that we wanted to reach out to and look for this. Through this, we developed a partnership, a memorandum of understanding, and launched the partnership between Penn State University, Penn Dot, or statewide traffic incident management program, or statewide transportation program, and also the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, who I work for. Again, the partnership is, we want to advance Penn Start through the required system engineer process and leverage financial and technical resources and explore the vision of a training facility that could be built. The website for this is pennstart.org, www.pennstart.org. If you go to the site now, you'll see the executive feasibility study, and you'll also see the concept of operations. Within the next few days or next week or so, you'll see the system requirements and the business plan. We're just working on the final steps of that process as well. We wanted this to have a dynamic operational model. We don't just want to focus on one thing. So we want to be able to do connected autonomous vehicle testing with commercial vehicles and transit vehicles. I work for a toll agency, so we had to have a tolling component to it so we could do tolling in ITS technology. But the number one focus of this facility is on traffic incident management and work zone. We're also exploring putting in railway safety and an aircraft firefighting simulator at the facility as well. So these are the areas, again, we're going to focus on. Traffic incident management for law enforcement, fire, rescue, EMS, towing, everybody. Drones, David mentioned drones as well, have that information in there and have that kind of testing available. Penn State University, as part of their partnership, are developing technical school, undergraduate, and graduate school training for this facility. We'll do connected autonomous vehicle testing because, again, that's going to help pay for the rental fees for the track, and for the facility will help pay for the traffic incident management training. We're going to do ITS and tolling technology. Work zone safety. Right now our workers go out on the road, and that's where they learn how to set up patterns and do things. We want to be able to have them in a closed facility to be able to do this and look to work safer there. Commercial vehicle testing and transit vehicles. So again, we want to have simulation, lab testing, field testing, and training. We want to be able to have people go up there and train on different kinds of roadways, different kind of roadway configurations. This is the design concept that we came up with for the facility. As a 6-lane high-speed roadway of 70-mile-per-hour straightaways, it has roundabouts because Pennsylvania is now putting in more and more roundabout facilities. We'll have urban intersections, rural intersections, helipads, signalized corridor, as well as railroad crossing. It's also going to have different roadway configurations, hills, curves. If you go to the Penn Start website, you'll be able to download videos, so this would be an actual video that you would see. And this is a concept of what the track would look like, a rendering of what the track would look like. And again, if you go to the website, you'll see the video. We want to have hills, curves. We want to have a number of things going on for this. The track obviously will not be flat. It will have hills, curves, and different roadway characteristics for this land. This will be up in the State College, Pennsylvania area. I can't say the specific site it will be on yet because we're not ready to name that until we do some more zoning requirements for that. We'll have truck parking studies as well in this, so it will be a very large track. Right now, it's looking that the track will be anywhere between 1.5 miles to 3.5 miles, depending on how we configure this onto the land. So where are we at with this process? Right now, we're using the system requirements. We're doing the steps, and we're using the V here. We just completed the system requirements workshop and the system requirement plans and the business model. We're just writing up, finishing the papers on that so we can push that out. And so we're getting ready to do the high-level design and start the design work on this. The plan for this facility is to have this open by fall of 2022. So we are on a very aggressive timeline for this. The next step for us will be doing another memorandum of understanding and figure out what agency is going to take the lead on the construction, design, and construction of this process. I believe it's going to be the university because of the way we're structured. It'll probably be easier for them to go into and start doing the construction, especially since it will be on property that they're donating as well for this. Okay, our approach we took, identify stakeholders, conduct industry outreach, develop preliminary con-ops and the business plan, and we've had workshops and we've done some developments as well. So we are in the final stage, developing draft and then starting construction. Again, the planning portion of this is how we broke it out. The planning, Turnpike was the lead with PennDOT and Penn State University on there. Now we're in the design phase and going into this. PennDOT was the lead, again, with the Turnpike and Penn State on there. Construction is probably going to be Penn State being the construction lead on that. And then once it operates, the Turnpike does not want to be the owner of this facility. PennDOT does not want to be the owner. We're not the experts in doing this. So it's either going to be Penn State University or a third-party consultant as the person that's actually doing the operations maintenance for this. Again, we're in the final steps for the next steps here. We're in the design, build, and construction of the facility phase for this plan. So this is sort of the timeline, procurement, starting construction, and doing some of the work in fall of 2022 is when we want to have that open to maintain and operate and maintain the facility. Right now, the nice thing, again, is the fact that Penn State does operate a facility. They're used to running a facility that's about 40 acres. So having them as a partner is a great thing to do. Hopefully you'll go check out pennstart.org. I did have Adam load 3 documents that were related to some of the discussions here, the white paper on responder safety, the blocking and hardening emergency vehicles, and a lighting study that we just completed in May, all in cooperation with the Emergency Responder Safety Institute or respondersafety.com. So that's there right there. Another thing I was asked to talk about very quickly is the Pennsylvania Turnpike early warning detection tool. We use we're a very good partner with Waze. We use a lot of indirect and hears data to look at how we're going to, watch our roadways and make sure we're getting incidents and getting notified of incidents as soon as possible. So Chris Parker from my agency, John Parker, he sets this kind of stuff. We have active watch points for doing this kind of stuff. It's combined Waze, index, and weather data. Update each segment with the speed, Waze, and weather, so our traffic operations center could look right away and see what's going on the roadway. This is sort of how we do it. We could tell if anything's going on the roadway that we need to as part of our watch points. So this is going to be part of a EDC 5 workshop or webinar. So we just wanted to give you a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of a detail for that. There's my contact information, and I appreciate the time. I'd like to turn it over to Jim from Ohio.
Yeah, hello, greetings from Ohio. This is Jim Roth in Central Office ODOT Columbus, here to talk about the TRIP program. But first, we have a little questionnaire, trying to see how many people actually have a towing incentive program already in their area. So it looks like we got quite a few, about half the responders so far. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. It's good to see that some people already have a program. The TRIP program in Ohio, what TRIP stands for is the Towing and Recovery Incentive Payment Program. And this is a program run by the Ohio Department of Transportation. And we have two objectives. First objective is to get all lanes open quickly after an incident. Incident could be a crash, or it could just be a breakdown of some sort, something that's impeding the normal flow of traffic. Because we all know what happens when we have an unexpected queue. We have the increased potential for a secondary crash, and so we're trying to get the roadway open as quick as possible so we can avoid those secondary crashes. So we have a number of towing companies under contract with ODOT who are willing and able to respond to these incidents. If they meet the requirements of the TRIP program, they're eligible for an incentive payment of $2,499. Last time it was $2,500, but due to a accounting issue, we had to lower it $1. So effectively $2,500 if they meet the requirements, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So the guidelines for the program, and again, I emphasize these are guidelines. These are not hard and fast rules. We don't look at these as constraints, but this is what the focus of the program is. It's for our major highway system, primarily our freeway system, and large commercial vehicles. We're talking like 5, 6, 7, 8 class trucks. Blocking one or more lanes or close enough to a lane to be an impediment to traffic. So if it's right on the edge of the shoulder and people are changing lanes to go around it, they're slowing down because of its position on the road, then that would be a qualifying factor. Primarily intended for periods of heavy traffic. So you're talking about rush hour or maybe holiday traffic or some traffic for a special event. Primarily intended for the peak hours, Monday through Friday, 5:30 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. And it cannot be a hazmat. If it's a hazmat situation, it's not eligible for the TRIP program. So it needs to be a non-hazmat to qualify. Like I said, we have a list of pre-qualified heavy towing companies that have indicated their willingness to participate in the program. We currently have 50 companies. It's a 2-year contract. The new contract just started July 1st, so it's about 3 weeks old. Last contract we had 52 companies, so there's a couple that dropped out, a couple that got added on, and a couple that forgot to get their bid in time. So we're at a solid 50 right now. What we've done is we divided the state into 36 different zones, and this is not intended to be legible, but if you see little dots all over the place, each of those dots corresponds to a zone, and a zone is a section of highway. The towing companies indicate on their bid which sections, which zones they want to participate in. So they're basically saying that we can meet the criteria in these certain zones. So that's really the purpose of the bid. The price is already set. It's just they're bidding their abilities and the locations they want to work in. So the Traffic Management Center, not sure why that header messed up a little bit there. Traffic Management Center in Ohio is run out of Columbus. They monitor the whole state, and they are keeping track of cameras and speed zones and maps and everything. They are going to be the part of ODOT who decides whether it's a trip or not a trip. Obviously, there's lots of incidents out there. We can't make everything a trip, but so it's their call. They're the only people who can make the call. Like I said, they're going to be watching cameras. They're going to be looking at their maps to see if they see a red line up there, meaning slow down. So if they see something fishy, they will, kind of focus in on that area. Before they determine whether it's going to be a trip or not, they will talk to the incident commander on the scene. So they're not making the call just from what they see in the Traffic Management Center, but they're going to confer with the incident commander on the scene and see what they think. That could be law enforcement or fire. Could be the freeway service patrol people down there, or as we call them, the state farm trucks, or ODOT crews that are on the scene. So we've got our own personnel down there. So they're trying to get more information from the scene to add to what they see on the cameras. Towing company, as you might guess, wants to make everything a trip. So we take what they tell us with 2 grains of salt, and we throw that in the hopper too. And sometimes if we don't have camera coverage, we'll ask some of these people on the scene, incident commander or towing company, take a picture of it and send it to us so we can see what's going on. The cameras are a big part of this, the success of the TRIP program. So, but again, the final decision is made by the Traffic Management Center. Nobody else can decide to spend the money except them. So, so the scoring guide. So how do we decide what's a trip, what's not a trip? This is the guide that we came up with, and this isn't something I would think they would use when an incident is happening. This is something that you'd want to study ahead of time, so you kind of got an idea of what we're talking about. So we got two rows in here: incident type and impact on traffic. So we score either a 5, 3, or a 1. As you can imagine, a 5 would be a serious incident, rollover, jackknife, something like that. 3 is going to be something less than that. Probably the truck's still on its wheels, but it's gotten involved in a crash. And number 1, maybe just the brakes are locked up, something minor. And then impact on traffic. Of course, if we're in rush hour traffic or holiday, it's going to be a 5. If it's maybe rush hour traffic, but it's inbound and the rush hour traffic is outbound, maybe it gets a 3. And if it's off-peak, middle of the night, on the weekend, it's going to get a 1. So we're going to take those 2 scores, 5, 3, and 1, and we're going to add them together. And, of course, you only get 5 possible combinations, 2, 4, 6, 8, or 10. So then you go to the second part of the scoring guide, and you can see here if it's a 10, meaning major crash, having a significant impact on heavy traffic, it's more than likely going to be considered a trip. The only exception to that would be if it's just such a big crash that there's no way they can really respond to it in the time that we require. So normally if it meets both those requirements, it'd be a 10 and it would be a trip. If it's a 2, meaning minor incident, low volume traffic, not much impact, probably not, unless the incident commander really thinks it would be helpful. So the Traffic Management Center does take the incident commander's input very seriously. So this is kind of how we do the scoring on that. So once the Traffic Management Center has determined that it is going to be a trip, they give it a thumbs up. They're going to pick a towing company based on proximity. So we have these maps that we bring up. You can see this is in 2 colors. There's brown on the left, red on the white. Those are 2 of our 36 zones. So let's say they had an incident, on the left half of this map, and it's, somewhere up in here. They're probably going to pick this towing company right there. So they're going to look at the map, try to judge which one's the closest. We're not trying to be fair. There's nothing fair about this. We're not trying to give equal work to all the different towing companies, because it's not based on it's based on driver safety and getting the road clear up as quick as possible. So whoever we can get out there the quickest, which is typically going to be your closest company. Incident commander, sometimes they've already called a towing company, which kind of ties our hands to a certain extent. If they have called a towing company and they're in our trip program, we can make it a trip. We'll call the towing company and say, hey, make it a trip. What do we get for that? It's kind of like a 3-alarm fire. I think they'll send extra equipment out there. They'll send their best guys out there. So when we kick it up to a trip, they do take that pretty seriously and respond a little bit better. Sometimes the truck owner has called their own company. Again, if that's happened, our hands are tied to a certain extent. If their towing company is coming from eastern Pennsylvania, be there 8 hours, then we say nah, that's not good enough. We're gonna take you somewhere else, and then your towing company can come and take you from there. So again, we're trying to get the road cleared up to avoid those secondary crashes. So the requirements of the towing company, once they get the call that it's going to be a trip, they need to arrive at the location within 45 minutes. This is during peak hours. If it's non-peak hours, it's 60 minutes. So that peak hour is Monday through Friday, 5:30 in the morning till 7 at night. So 45 minutes to show up, and then once they get on the scene and get permission to start their activities, clearance activities, they get 90 minutes to clear the scene. So if they meet both of those requirements, they get almost $2,500, which looks like that. We get $1 back now. But anyway, so what if they don't meet those requirements? They have to meet both requirements to get paid. If they don't show up on time or they don't get the scene cleared in time once they get there, they're not eligible for a payment. On the cases where we have determined it's a trip, we've called the towing company and they've started mobilizing, and we cancel it. The truck, he was able to get his engine started and he drove away or whatever happened. We will give them a cancellation fee of $600. So basically 1/4 of the total, roughly, just for their effort in getting things moving there. So extenuating circumstances. The numbers of 45 minutes and 90 minutes are not hard and fast. Those are our objectives, but we try to be flexible with the companies. We want this to be a partnership. We want them to feel it's important as we do. So if there's some other things happen, say it takes an hour to get there because they're stuck in the same traffic jam that the incident has caused, and we can see them on the cameras. They're trying to get there. It's kind of beyond their control. So we will work with them on these numbers. Like I said, we look at this as a partnership, and we want them to come back next time. And communication. Communication is really critical to the program. The towing company is supposed to call when they get on the scene. They're supposed to call when they start working. They're supposed to call, and this is the TMC, they're supposed to call if they're told to stop working for any reason. So we don't keep the 90-minute clock running if they're out there on the scene, but they're not allowed to work. So communication is really critical to the effectiveness of the program. A little bit of a history. Started in 2011, and I think I came on board with it in 2013. So it was already up and running when I started, and it was in Columbus. We expanded to Cleveland and then Toledo, and it was based, my understanding, on a program that was already started in Georgia, so we can't take full credit for the innovation here. So in 2015, we decided to go statewide. We started out in some, like I said, some urban areas, and then we decided just to make it basically the whole freeway system on a statewide basis. So we got over 1,000 miles of freeway and expressway covered right now. But still, it seems to be mostly an urban program, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that we have our heaviest traffic in the urban areas, plus we have the camera coverage. The camera coverage really helps with this program a lot. So areas out in the rural where we don't have the camera coverage, we really are handicapped out there as to how to determine what's a trip and what's not a trip. So really most effective in the urban areas. Just a little table right here. This is for the last 4 fiscal years. 2019 just ended on June 30th of this year. So we're averaging 150 trip events per year. 133 we're making full payment. 16 we're making the $600 payment. So that means we canceled it after we called the trip, and no payment on 8. So those are basically, I guess, the ones we could call a failure for whatever reason. So we're getting a 95% success rate, which we think is really good. So it's about 13 trips per month. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. This is Paul back. So that's a couple of thoughts on the TRIP program that I'm fairly familiar with. So there's not too many around the country. Florida, I think, was the first, might have been the first, or Washington State. Atlanta has had one for a number of years. There's only a few around the country that I'm aware of, but those that have them are, they have stuck around a long time. Jim, while you're right there, there is a question. Is this 100% state funded? Melissa Furlong, my friend from Tennessee, has asked.
Yeah, I was typing the answer. It is 100% state funded. So, this money is above and beyond what the towing company charges. The the company that needs the tow. So this is just an additional incentive payment that comes out of the state completely.
So I think that, Melissa, that's what you'll find. But if you look at Jim's last screen, if you recall that, $342,000 overall cost for the program. Is that right, Jim? Is that average cost annually? I mean, and
over the last 4 years.
Over the last 4 years, that's nothing, right? Nothing compared to what these crashes, these major rollovers, major crashes that we know have always been a problem, right? All of us in the TIM community know that when they come to these large incidents and they get paid by the hour, then there's no incentive for these wrecking companies to hustle along. And we've all, anyone that's been on scene has more than likely has seen that. So that is nothing. Just one incident, it pays for itself when you consider the economic impact of these major incidents on it. So that's why we love them. And most states, most areas that have them, keep them for many, many years. It's getting it up and started. It's all often the challenge, getting the funds and making the bosses understand the benefits. So thank you for that, Jim, and Todd and David for while anyone's thinking of any questions, I do have a few comments. But first, I want to my partner, Jim Ostrich, I think, is on the line. Jim, do you have anything to offer today? You want to talk about your National Traffic Incident Management Awareness Week? Anything?
Hey, Paul, it take me a second, but I can unmute Jim in just a moment.
Oh. Usually I like keeping them muted, but not today. Joke. While we're doing that, while Jim's getting unmuted, so for those of you that are not familiar with the self-assessment and want to just kind of look at it and want to potentially use it at your next committee meeting, the 2019 user guide and questions and associated questions are in the presentation pod, where you can download it and print it out and take a look at it and see it.
Jim, are you there with us?
Yeah. This is Jim Roth from Ohio. Is that who you're looking for?
Jim Ostrich on this.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can now, sir. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Everyone, I just wanted to echo what Paul said a minute ago about the cost of, what was it, $342,000, as Paul said. It's just minuscule in comparison to, the benefits of having a trip program or risk, as I think the person, Sean, or someone from Florida chimed in on. You can't put a price, pardon the pun, on having a strong program like that that's going to benefit, your state and in so many ways. So I just want to start real quick, a couple of comments from Paul's presentation early on with the self-assessment. The fact that, many states have TIM committees. We can't emphasize that enough. Whether it's a small regional, a statewide or regional, or even one by county, however you can configure one, it is certainly a best practice and one that deserves consideration. And it goes to sustainability of a TIM program with all the bells and whistles, working with responders, the training, traffic management center, ITS, and all the emerging technologies that I wanted to hit on as well, which is a big phase of where we're in now. Paul and I, small team that we are at Federal Highway, we know that there are jurisdictions out there taking advantage of UAS for crash reconstruction, and the onslaught of connected automated vehicle technology that's here, and whether it's building tracks like Todd Lease mentioned that Penn Start is going to embark on here in short order and have a phenomenal facility for not just Pennsylvania but neighboring states. I think Todd mentioned that they're looking for the neighboring states that want to play or participate. You can't put a price on that. Dave MacDonald mentioned earlier, and Paul and I, we encourage the regional type conferences. I think Dave MacDonald made reference to as well. I know Ohio's done them. I think Kentucky's done like 3 in a row. I think they're getting ready to do the third one in October. And of course Oregon, and so I want to underscore that as low-hanging fruit. If you can get your heads together, your neighboring states in your region, that's a best practice that returns a lot of dividends. And so anyway, I could go on and on, but I don't want to. Thanks for the time, Paul.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. And I did want to remind everyone that Jim is Jim and I just kind of split duties, but we work with each other on almost everything. So we have your call there on the 20th, is it, for
August 20th? Yeah, thanks, Paul. You said that and I didn't hit on it, which is the next planning call, the state's planning call in preparation for the upcoming National Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week that occurs November 10th through 16th of this year. And the importance, many of you have been on the first call recently, but our next call is, I believe, Tuesday, August 20th. And please get your public affairs folks and your TIM stakeholders to participate. And hopefully we're going to have all states this year. And anyway, Paul and I are working on that, a whole bunch of activities, and we need you to raise the flag of success and shine the light on this problem that is line of duty deaths. So important that we all work together on this. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Jim and Adam, for putting that link for registering for that. If you want to participate in that call, or more importantly, if you know your PIO or somebody that isn't necessarily a traditional partner, that you might be able to reach out. Just a couple of quick mentions. I don't see any more questions, but a few quick mentions. I just wanted to mention that our next webinar will be August 28th, the Talking Tim webinar. So we don't want to webinar you to death, but this month there'll be 2. But no, I guess there'll be 2. So, but that's worthwhile. We're already working on topics. We'll get that announcement out to you a little sooner than we did this month. We had good intentions, and then we had vacations, and then got it out a little late. But so please share it with all your TIM committee members, and share with everybody that I think it's there's some good topics out there. And speaking of topics, if during your course, if you run into a good practice, something you think might be good to share with others throughout the country, we have plenty to talk about. We have a list that I could probably finish the year with the list I already have. But we're also looking for anything from you and from that you might recommend or you might want to share with others. Then that's always open to anybody throughout the country, especially the folks that anybody that you think might be a good topic is welcome. That's about it. We have one quick announcement. We're going to be sending some more information about it yet. We're going to be during that week, that second week in November, we're going to be holding a public safety seminar. We hope to. We're in the process of finalizing and getting approval for a public safety summit the 14th and 15th of November. Going to be some high-level folks that are invited as primary audience, but we're also looking for some practitioners to participate as well. So more information on that, but if you want to put that on your radar screen, you think you might be able to attend. Can't support the funding, but the travel, but if you were able to participate, get your agency to support that, then more than likely would be happy to have you. So reach out to me and we can talk more about that. So no, and then I don't see anything else, but we'll give you back 20 or so minutes that you weren't expecting back. But Vaishali has just put in there such great work and such great information, great work that's happening around the country. So many good people out there that are doing good things, and it's just an honor. Jim and I really feel honored to work with you, folks like you and many others on a daily. Thanks. We'll be in touch shortly, and hope that we'll give the rest of the day back. Thanks again.